Let's talk supply chain. So welcome to the show, Courtney.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you on the show. I mean, everyone knows how much I love to put the spotlight on women owned businesses, especially ones as successful as yours. Plus, you're passionate about sustainability, about partnerships, about collaboration. And if I had to imagine my ideal guest, I'm sure it would be someone like you. Plus, you were recently on the Blended podcast as well. And I just cannot wait to find out more about you, about Renewal Logistics, and how you're making waves in the industry. So, let's start with your founder story because establishing a logistics company as a woman 17 years ago, I mean, I've been in the industry over 20 years. I mean, I can only imagine what that was like. So, talk to us about your background and how Renewal Logistics came about.
Sure. It's a very kind of meandering story. I'll try to keep it short. Our business is actually 50-50 between me and my husband. So it is women owned, but it's not only women owned. So I just wanted to make that
Mhm,
clear. But
mhm.
so we actually started, I was a sales rep for Alltel, which is now Verizon, 20
Okay.
years ago, right
Mhm.
out of college. And my husband was a chemist for the state law enforcement division and in South Carolina. And we both hated our jobs. And his parents were in the dry cleaning business, and they had 4 little itty bitty dry cleaning stores. And we were like, what are we going to do? We can't work for these. We can't work here. We can't do this anymore. So he went and worked for the family business first. And then when we got engaged, in like August, late August. 2 days after that, I went into work. You know, we got engaged on a Saturday. Monday, I went in and I was like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. I'm going to go work for the family business. And
Ah.
they were like, really? You're really going to do that? And I was like, yes, I am. I cannot wait to do it. It's going to be awesome to be able to work with my husband. And we were in the dry cleaning business. Um, really started looking for ways to expand that quickly and like with the high growth, velocity swing, and started thinking about, how can we 10x the volume that we have per customer? So
Mhm.
in the dry cleaning world, it's like 4 units a customer. And we
Okay.
realized with the same equipment and skill set that we had, we could get into the insurance restoration world and clean
Huh.
apparel and fabric items in customers' homes who had experienced a house fire and help them get their lives back together.
Oh, wow.
So we did that, and we leveraged technology that no one else was using, and we created some pretty amazing structure, and very quickly became the largest restoration dry cleaning company in the US that's independent. So there's some franchises, but in terms of like facilities, we have, an 85,000 square foot dry cleaning facility, another 30,000 square foot dry cleaning facility thereabouts. So quickly grew. And then in 2013, we were approached by an apparel company, like a top 3 apparel company, who had this issue that they could not find anyone in the US to solve for them. They had 300,000 pairs, like units of clothing that
Mhm.
that had to be cleaned before they could be sold, and they had 2 weeks to ship those units to the wholesaler. And it was the largest wholesaler. It was one of the largest wholesalers in the US. So it was like this huge relationship and huge deal because they had no time to get these orders turned around. And they had no other solution, so they gave us a shot, but they didn't really feel like we were going to be able to do it. They were like, who are these young kids coming into our facility talking
Right.
about how they can clean all these items when no one else can do it? Why is it that they can? um, but we signed that deal on Monday, and by Wednesday we were producing 27,000 units, and we had 2 shifts going of 200 temp workers. First time we had ever worked with temps before. We built a whole facility literally in 2 days. I had all of my contractor friends come in and put in
Wow.
rails, so that we had production space, and we actually finished that project 2 days early, 100% on time and full. And it was extremely complex. Apparel items usually will have like stickers that say the size as well as hang tags,
Mhm.
and then they have to be polybagged, and then they have to go in boxes and mixed SKU case packs, and it was just all these details. And the company that was receiving all these goods was known for predatory chargeback. Well, I wouldn't say predatory, but I would say very stiff chargebacks. Let me just say it like that. And so they were just sure, number one, that they were still going to lose the account. Number two, that when they got the goods, there were still going to be tons of problems.
Right.
But it was perfect. They had zero complaints. No one said a word when those things went into that account.
Wow.
And they were, they were in like 800 stores across the U.S. And so they were like, well, if you can do this, what else can you do? And they were like, we hate 3PLs. We can never find one that will actually do what they say they're going to do. They all tell you they'll do everything and then they never execute, but you guys clearly can execute. So, let's build a relationship and let's see what else we can do. So we started doing basically anything in their facility that they didn't have the manpower or the bandwidth or process to touch and handle. They would just hand it to us and say, here's how we've dealt with it in the past.
Hmm.
And then, so now, and then like 4 years into that relationship, they asked us to put a facility right next to theirs and become their dedicated return center. So we now
Wow.
handle like about 100,000 units a week of value added services, which was anything between FBA prep and like wholesale prep, getting goods ready to go to like Urban Outfitters or
Hmm.
whoever. As well as we do a couple million units a year in returns. And then and that's just for that one customer. And then we have about 10 other enterprise level customers now at this point. We do all kinds of things. So, like point of purchase display, kitting and packing, Costco display pallet builds. We also have about 25 fulfillment customers that are, smaller to medium size, like they're not global brands, but they're still mid-market, larger brands, and then some that are really small. But and so that's kind of been our story to get to where we are. And then we were really just pretty happy with the way things were in our client mix. We grew word of mouth 100% for our whole life up until COVID
Wow.
hit. And one of
Hmm.
our customers sold off some of their brands, and it just made us really kind of feel like, with the volatility, you never know what a global company is going to do and
Yeah.
how you could kind of get, be affected by that. So we just decided to start growing and to kind of decrease our customer concentration with one customer, or, I guess at that point it was like 4 customers that were about that size. And then we were like, well, if we're going to grow, we might as well just, go all out and see how fast we can grow. So we brought on some really great advisors, and we were
Good.
really structuring some pretty cool things that I think are, you know, and in the business, there's, usually one or two big and bulky companies that can handle big and bulky, one or two frozen food companies. And there's really not an apparel company that's out there that can
Hmm.
do everything. And so that's really kind of what we're trying to do.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I mean, it's just amazing how we get into our businesses and what that looks like and the journey to get there. And if that one company hadn't have called you to say, "Hey, can you do this?" I mean, look at how much it has resulted in for you as far as like additional business with them and then growing the business. So my one takeaway to the audience from that story is don't turn away anything. You never know where it
Oh
could
yeah.
go,
That's
right?
so true. That is so true. And I think as women, that's something, women get hit on a lot, right? Like and so you're
Mhm.
always like, no, no, no. But you have to be careful about that. You have to be careful to not turn down opportunities, and then also not
Mhm.
turn down people that are willing to help. So
Yeah.
like I definitely think that's a great takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've touched on, your founder story. You touched on a little bit about the market and what happened through COVID, right? Or the pandemic. What about now? Because I think the worlds of e-commerce, fulfillment, logistics, and sustainability look very different now to how they did when you founded Renewal, and then obviously post pandemic as well. So, talk to us about the landscape as it is right now. How have things kind of changed? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the industry right now?
So I don't know if you've seen, like, Amazon has apparel brands that are in-house apparel brands at this point. Fulfillment is really like, apparel has always been something that people would buy. Like, they'd buy the basics, underwear, socks, and things. But now apparel online, like, you can't even go to a store to buy it, is just becoming a very large segment of the marketplace. And it always has been, but it's just changed a lot to where the buying, habits of people have become where once you kind of know a brand and you know your size, you'll kind of stick with it and you'll buy online a lot. Well, so I think the thing that is kind of different now than it was before is returns. Returns is something that most brands that are, doing much e-commerce business are struggling with, trying to figure out how are they going to handle it in the right way.
Mhm.
And if you don't have a solid sustainability and like reverse logistics program in place, you end up just kind of ditching a lot of product and not really receiving the value out of it. And
Mhm.
so um, that's a big difference. I think the other thing that's a really big difference that I think you'll probably start seeing in the future even more is ESG ratings are becoming a really big deal when it comes to being able to get investment funds.
Mm. Yep.
So companies that have like a solid ESG program, they're basically they've got their act together, and companies look at them and think, investment companies look at them and think that they have a lot less risk
Mhm.
in their investment, and they actually have a better return. They have about a 6.5% better return. So
Wow.
a lot of companies are starting to move toward those types of programs, and the ESG is environmental sustainability and governance programs.
Right.
So um, I think those are some ways that things have really changed. And of course, technology is changing a lot.
Mhm.
Robots are coming in.
Yeah.
Um, and, big data is helping to be able to, the systems are getting better in
Mhm.
terms of warehouse management.
Absolutely. So, talk to us. You've already mentioned a few of the things that you do at Renewal Logistics, but walk us through all the things that you do at Renewal Logistics so we can get a good understanding of how you help your customers.
So we have different solutions for different sized organizations. Obviously, for the enterprise brands, we're looking at how to help them become more omni-channel.
Okay.
So they have a deal with Walmart, and Walmart shrinks their shelf space. What are they going to do with that excess product? Well, they can send it through our facility, and we can take off all the hang tags and rebrand it for them and reprice it for them, so then they can sell it to Target. That's actually, we just did a project like that a couple days ago
Hmm.
for one of our customers. Or you know, like I was talking about before, returns refurbishment. So we've got a customer who had, a million panties that came back from a
Wow.
retailer, and they were like, if I put these in TJ Maxx or Target, or excuse me, TJ Maxx or Marshalls, I'm gonna, dilute my brand. So I can't donate them. I don't know what to do. So what we did, we ended up repackaging them into 5 packs, and built a display for them so
Mhm.
that they could actually be sold back to the exact same retailer again
Wow.
for the same price. It's just they
Mhm.
were bundled in a 5 pack. And so, like a lot of inventory management, like moving inventory, helping companies to be able to move inventory faster, to be able to, if there is a return or there's something, if something falls through with the deal or something just doesn't work out, things don't ship in time, and so the orders get canceled. How do you still move that inventory and not just have to sit on it?
Mhm. And
And
that's
then
huge right now. I mean, if we think about coming out of the pandemic, there was a ton of inventory that everybody just kind of over ordered, right? And that
mhm.
companies still are sitting on potentially right now. And so, ways to be able to maneuver that and be able to resell it and still keep some of that revenue in the business is huge. Like, that's really, really big.
Yeah, bundling.
Mhm.
So like inventory management 101 is, gift with purchase, or
Right.
sales, like if you get this item, then we'll give you the slower moving item for 50% off. Or there's so many different ways you can bundle things. And the repackaging piece is just a big part of that. A lot of companies just never really think about how much agility they could have in the marketplace if they had a really good option when it came to that repackaging piece. And
Yeah.
it's hard to do. Um, we came from a business that's super picky customers. An item in the dry cleaning facility is going to touch 13 hands before it ever makes it to a customer. So we had that kind of micromanagement of
Hmm.
processes and people in place kind of ingrained in our system.
Yeah.
So it's easy for us to do it, but it's, there's not, I think there's two other companies that I know of that do some of it, but none of it handle it at the scale that we do. So that's what we do for enterprise customers. And then for like mid-market customers, and this is what I'm most excited about right now is, so we deal with customers who have high-end items, right? So like we've got a customer that we have right now that is when they came to us, they were like a $45 million company. Their average price point was around $450, 425 maybe. And 5% of their goods were returns
Mm.
and damage to the point to where they couldn't actually be sold again.
Wow.
They were having alignment issues with their systems, so that they were having all kinds of canceled orders. And then, in apparel, dim weight is a big thing. Checking your dim weight to make sure it
Yeah.
aligns with your actual weight. And
Mhm.
so the solutions we were able to bring to them, they were, I don't know what their profit margin is, but like, let's say it's 20%. That's a $9 million margin.
Mhm.
But we were able to actually bring them. So their issues were probably about $5 or $6 million. And then, if 50% of that was what our target is to be able to recover that for them.
Right.
So we're basically giving them an extra 40% on their bottom line,
Wow.
simply by the solutions that we kind of offer with our retail, with our, excuse me, our dry cleaning facility and wet cleaning facility. So, and that process is really like, looking at the item, if it has a makeup stain, or
Mhm.
what has to be done to it, and being able to take those tags off, process it, and then be able to resell it as factory fresh. And we actually brought in a bunch of equipment from Italy to be able to fold things factory fresh.
Hmm.
So um, those are some of the things that we're kind of working on right now. And then we're working with some retailers on some brand incubation,
Mhm.
helping the small companies figure out how to get into a 3PL and figure out the whole supply chain piece. So,
Amazing. Now,
yeah.
those stories really show the power and the impact of partnering with the right people, right? And Renewal Logistics, from these stories that you're sharing with us and these examples, I mean, they're amazing, but they showcase how when you partner with the right people and they really understand your business, what it actually means to your bottom line, what it means as an
Mhm.
extension to your business to find the right partner and collaborate with the right people, and so much more. So, in saying that, and you've talked about a couple of different segments of customer, who is your ideal client? So, if I'm listening to this and I'm like, wow, I want them as a partner, what do I look like?
That's a great question. So, I mean, we don't want, like, we get calls every day on our and website inquiries,
Yeah.
and I think what we think is, something someone told me a while back that I just think is just a beautiful thing is, it doesn't cost anything to be significant, right?
Hmm.
Like, so where can you really make a difference for someone? And those are the customers that we just get really juiced about, are the ones where we can really help them a lot. And really it boils down to apparel companies and footwear companies. So if you have leather goods, a lot of leather goods end up having mold issues,
Oh,
or
wow.
odor
Hmm.
issues, or rework issues. And any brand that's got a leather element could really benefit from using a company like ours. And then all those like disaster
Hmm.
situations where you're like we had a customer, the front page of their catalog was 100,000 units of puffer jackets with a fur collar on it. Those items came in and they were covered in mold, and they had 5 days to be able to get those to be able to ship out to their customers. I mean, it
Wow.
was like disaster, calamity for them.
Yeah.
And we were able to get everything done for them so that they didn't miss a beat, and then they were calm, and they weren't stressed out about it this whole time.
Wow.
So, I think customers who have products that are in the apparel space with a high SKU count, companies that have really high return rates, 30%, 40, 50%, companies who have like high dollar value items, those are all like really good fits for our company. And anyone that really wants to do a lot of bundling and really make their brand omni-channel. And by that I mean, like, a company may, when they bring product in from Asia or wherever they're importing it, they're going to bring in a certain amount that's on hangers, and then a certain amount that's going to be packed for e-com in poly bags. And it's really expensive if you have your retail people repacking those things and
Hmm.
to ship out for an e-com order, especially if you're doing drop shipping
Right.
for like a large drop ship order. So having someone who can kind of be that intermediary to manage that
Mhm.
and do it really effectively and cleanly and inexpensively, is really helpful. So those are some of the big places that we are, I think, really helpful. And then for small brands, like the ones that are really trying to figure out wholesale for that first time, and um, the whole the compliance piece is just really challenging for a lot of companies, and actually for even large companies. Like one of our global brands, they asked us, they were failing in compliance with one of their top customers, and they asked us to help them, and they went from being an F to a B in terms of their vendor grade
Wow.
within 6 months, because we started kind of managing that and auditing it for them
Amazing.
and doing all the work for them to make sure it was clean.
Amazing. Now, one of the things that has been more popular over the last couple of years is subscription boxes. I hear that you have a subscription box program. Can you just give us a bit of an overview of what that looks like and what you do? I mean, when you're a supply chain professional and you think about a subscription box and all the different components that go into it, you're kind of like your head spins, right? But these are the things that you live for.
Oh, yeah, we absolutely love them. We love them. It's like so exciting. So I'll simplify the process for you.
Mhm.
You receive the goods, you count the goods to make sure you have enough to actually fill all the orders. You segregate the goods by SKU, and then you build a process plan. How many boxes are you going to need? How are you going to organize it at the tables for people to be able to pick and pack it? And normally you have a certain number. So if you have a subscription service, you know how many customers you're going to have each
Right.
month. Basically, you're
Mhm.
going to have new ones sign
Mhm.
up, but you kind of have an idea of what that number is going to be. So you pull your first order, and you go ahead and fill all of those and ship them out. And then a couple days later, you'll pick and pack for all the other orders. And it's really not that much different than regular pick and pack. Like, I mean, that's what you're
Mhm.
doing, but you're doing it in a very concentrated
Mhm.
way. And then you're adding some extra details to make it, pretty and marketable. So there's a great unboxing experience. So, you look at it, you time study it, you figure out kind of, okay, what's going to be the best flow.
Mhm.
And then you make sure that you have people who know what they're doing and who have handled subscription boxes
Mhm.
before to do the kitting, and it just kind of flows.
So I have experience in subscription boxes. We won't go into details of that, but one of the things that was the hardest thing to manage was the inventory. Because each month they got to pick what went into their subscription box, and you never knew what they were gonna pick, and so if you didn't have enough product online, it was a nightmare because you were like, "Oh, you might have to swap something out for this month." Do you ever run into that, or do you really only deal with companies that have, the same things that go out to the same people every month?
So we do deal with that, but we normally deal with that for the first, handful of months. So like
Mm,
one thing I think that's kind of, anytime you have alignment with a strategic
mhm,
partner, it's a feedback conversation, right? It's like, okay, here's what's really working, here's what's not, here's what we probably need to work on. And so that is something that we try to help companies get to the point to
okay.
where, okay, if you're giving options, let's look at the numbers and figure out how many of, what we should actually do. But a lot of times those companies will start kind of making that a little less
Right.
complicated, just to be nice to
Right.
themselves, because it is a lot. But like, there's a lot of ways to do it. So like, let's say that you have four items are going to be the same in every single box, but you're going to also send a t-shirt, and you have a different size
Oh,
range for all the
yes.
different people who are part of it, right?
Mhm,
So you can do the picking of the boxes and get those ready, and it is an extra touch. But from a time management perspective, sometimes it's just best to, at that point, just go back and plug in the right
mm,
T-shirt. So there are different strategies you can
yeah.
use to shorten that cycle. But yeah, it can definitely be
Oh, it was
complicated.
complicated, let me tell you. I no longer do it, so it's okay. Although I do have an idea for a subscription box in supply chain, and so I think I'm gonna have to come to you. But anyways, that's a
Oh, that'd be
conversation for
awesome.
a whole nother day. You mentioned returns, a little bit earlier in this, conversation, and I know that we also touched on sustainability, and returns really have a huge effect on circularity, right? We talk about circular
Hmm.
supply chains. Returns are a really big component of that. Obviously, the reusability of the product and what that looks like. Talk to us about how important that is and how you help your customers with the returns and really help them to think about the circular part of that, instead of it going into waste, how do we get that back into, I don't know, production, or the way that you do it by, stripping it and making it something else to be for somebody else or another retailer. Talk to us about that, because I think that that's really important and something that a lot of companies are looking for right now.
So I think with sustainability, so you have two things. You have the landfill piece, goods going into landfill. You also have all of the time in transit that happens. So once something goes to a customer, and then all of a sudden you're bringing it back. If a brand is bringing it back to a return center and then they're refurbishing it, and then it's going to go back to a distribution center, all of a sudden it's had two separate legs,
Right.
right? So a big part of like having the right reverse logistics strategy is looking at what like just looking at the segment of your returns. So like do you have a high return rate? Do you not have a high return rate? If you have a 1% return rate, you can do that. You can have it at a third party location and they can sell it off or donate it or whatever it is that you want to do. But if you have a high return rate, you really want to have that co-located with your 3PL so that you can quickly get it back into inventory. And then that's going to take off a huge piece of that, because what I find from apparel brands all the time is they'll be in the big box 3PLs and they're like, I've got $40,000 in merchandise just sitting in the corner that they just don't know what to do with.
Mhm.
Or, I've got 14 pallets of goods that are sitting on our dock that no one can figure out what should happen next. So you really need someone who can, like, as a brand or even a retailer, you want partners who can just kind of walk you through the process and give you, here's the 10 questions we need to ask to figure out what plug and play solution you
Mhm.
kind of need, because it is a very simple, you know you're going to have the you're going to evaluate it. You're going to see if it's sellable again as new or not, right? If not, then can you sell it at a discount in the value chain? If not, can you donate it? If not, should you recycle it? So there's this disposition piece where you have to figure out how you're going to dispose of these items. And by dispose, I just mean, figure
Mhm.
out what the next step in the cycle is going to be. And then you have to do an evaluation based on what the cost is going to be to refurbish and what the cost is going to be for that item to be able to be
Mhm.
resold. So there's a little bit of math in there, but then at that point it's just kind of mapping out where you want these items to
Mhm.
go whenever you have certain scenarios. And it's not that complicated, but it does require extra time and attention. And so with us being an apparel company that's been in the refurbishment business for 20 years, like we just kind of know whether something's going to clean up or not. And so you don't really want to end up kind of being a guinea pig
Right.
for a company. But so I think I lost the point of what you had asked about. Like, so how does it play into circularity?
Yeah, and I think
Was
you
that?
really did answer the question. I think it also goes back to the example that you gave us around repackaging. Right? That example that you gave us about the million panties that they had that they didn't know what to do with. And you really came to the table as Renewal Logistics and said, well, wait a second. If we package it like this and we put them in a bundle of 5, you can then resell them, and the retailer will take it back and potentially sell them, or you could sell them to another retailer, etc. But repackaging it and making it look, you know, that much more saleable to a retailer is also part of that journey. And I think the questions that you're
Mhm.
talking about, the questions that you're asking the customer to think about, really helps to get you to the place where you can think outside of the box, because they're very in the business,
Mhm.
right? And if they partner with somebody who is like a Renewal Logistics that has the experience in it, can think outside of the box and come up with some of these solutions that can turn this into a circular supply chain solution, is just amazing, because sometimes we get too caught up in ESG goals, right? How am I going to get there? Carbon offsets, carbon footprint, all of that kind of stuff. But really, there's a lot that can be done in the last mile and in the reverse logistics, from packaging, repackaging. How do we get this stuff back on the market? Can we get it back on the market? Here's your options. Let's not throw it in the garbage, right? Let's make the
Mhm.
most out of the options that are available to you. And sometimes they just don't know. You only know what you know until you can talk to somebody like you that
Exactly.
has done it before.
And that's the thing I think is like, so I had someone ask me the other day, what's my big challenge when it comes to
Mhm,
going to market? And that challenge is opening people's minds to what is
mhm,
possible if you just have the right partnership, right? It's like what you said earlier, like partnerships are really important and they're important for so many reasons, but the education piece and what they can bring in terms of new ideas for
mhm,
sure. And yeah, I mean, like it's so amazing to me how much money companies are leaving on the table and in so many different ways. So, like, it's not just that we can clean these items and repackage them, but even the simple stuff that other 3PLs can also do if they just put the
right,
time and the attention in, like getting systems to sync
mhm,
properly. You know, if you're having alignment issues with your ERP and the WMS and your marketplace, I mean, like there's something wrong there. Why hasn't anyone
right,
taken the time to fix that for you? You know, like they got you
yeah,
90% there so they could check the box and they'd have you in as a
mhm,
customer. And then you're stuck dealing with all these manual processes after that. And it's like, why didn't they just go and spend that extra
mhm,
10% of energy to get it right and get you truly across the
mhm,
finish line? So those are the types of things too that I think are really important. But yeah, I think I kind of trailed off there. But like from a sustainability standpoint, the amount of money that companies leave on the table is just
mhm,
absolutely insane. And then not only that, but the social stories, right? So like, um, let's say that you had like when we were in the business, the dry cleaning business, we did coats for the coatless. So like we'd have all this excess inventory that would sit
right,
for years in our building, and you would, what a great social
mhm,
story to be able to give coats to people that need them in the wintertime. And same thing with electronics, like companies that are in the electronics business can, you provide 5,000 laptops to people who can't get
mhm,
online, and all of a sudden you've made a huge
yeah,
difference in so many people's lives. So like I think that's the other thing that's really exciting about sustainability and circularity to me is that there's an opportunity for people to have
mhm,
access to things that they never had before, and all of a sudden that brand can really take that and run with it. And a great example of that, a very high-end shoe brand had a bunch of defects that came through, and I think it was about 5,000 pairs that we were looking at, and these were rain boots. And they were looking at just shredding them and turning them back
hmm,
into rubber. And we were able to provide like a solution for them, like, okay, here's all the things that if you did this could be your social story, and these are the types of posts you could make. And gave examples of that, and they actually implemented
wow,
that program, and it was a great program for them. And now all of a sudden they have a re-commerce program. And a lot of companies have always felt like, well, if I do that, then, my customers that are paying full price are going to pay less. But actually, it's almost a completely different
yeah.
customer segment that you're talking to
Yeah,
at that
that's
point.
such a good point. I think the other thing that we also haven't touched on is things like this, partnering with like a renewal logistics to think outside of the box in a variety of different ways in your supply chain can be a really big competitive advantage, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so like, it's so funny. I think our two big things that we tell every customer is that number one, we want to bring you relief. So if
Love
you're
that.
dealing with like a really stressful situation, we want to take that stress off of you. And then as soon as we get all of those tactical, stressful situations worked out, we want to become your your
Yes.
secret weapon, right? So like, it's because I heard someone say that a while back, and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what we want to be for our customers. And that's what we are, because again, other people don't know that these services are out there
Mhm.
and that these opportunities are out there to be able to quickly move product from one place to another. And, you know, it's an opportunity for a lot of like mid market brands that don't have that
Mhm.
learning yet to be able to kind of implement the strategies that the global
It's so
brands are
true.
using. And that's just like an
It's
amazing
so
thing,
true.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
I love that. And it brings everybody back to kind of a little bit of a level playing field, right? Because sometimes you look at the Goliaths and you're like, how am I supposed to compete with them? But we need those medium sized, those small to medium sized retailers, and we want them to succeed. And there's a variety of different ways that they can. It's just really about implementing different strategies, different tactics, different partnerships. So, talk to me about the future of renewal
mhm.
logistics. What is exciting in the hopper? What can we expect to see?
Uh, well, we have a new facility in the works. So that's one thing. We're going to have some excess space coming up that we'll be able to start filling, which I'm super excited about that. Um, I think we're also going to really be working a lot more on developing medium and small business solutions so that it's easy for companies and frictionless for companies to get started, and they can do a lot more self-servicing with the 3PL than what they've had the ability to do in the past. And just overall, I think we're really just still trying to spread our word about like what we do well and how we can help people, and finding those people that really do need and could really see a value from the services that we offer. I'm one of those people. I don't like the idea of selling a blue suit
Right.
to everybody. I really only want to sell a blue suit to someone who needs a blue suit. So,
Mhm.
you know, and I think what we're trying to do with that is just provide a lot of
Mhm.
education. So we're getting ready to start some really cool things online that are educational, that I can't really say too much about because we're about to do a press release on it, but you can look forward to that
Yay.
soon. And yeah, so those are some of the things that are happening. We're doing a lot of collaborations, and we're working a lot with not just the brands but also the retailers, and kind of becoming the retailer strategic partner to help all of their brands to be able to do all of the compliance that's necessary for their companies.
Awesome.
So those are kind of all the different things that we're working
I
on right now.
love to hear that so much. I mean, honestly, there was probably so much more I could ask you, and we could talk for hours. So we'll have to have you back on the show, or maybe even thoughts and coffee. We have been operating in turbulent
Oh yeah,
times, but
great.
now it's a new year with new goals: sustainability, exceptional customer service and brand experience, new technology, and scaling against the unique backdrop of globalization. There's a lot to tackle, but Renewal Logistics can help. They partner with today's leading brands to build custom fulfillment solutions and grow businesses fast. Their strategic approach and systems combine decades of collective industry expertise with state of the art logistics services to deliver truly exceptional brand experiences for their range of small, medium, and large customers. If you want to find out more, you can check them out at renewallogistics.com. And a massive thanks to Courtney for joining me today, and the team at Renewal Logistics for making this episode happen. Thanks so much, Courtney.
Thank you, Sarah. It was great to be here.